Hello. Hi. My name is Shiloh Johnson, and I'm with EverydayFamily.com, which is a pregnancy and parenting website with over 4 million members. And, I do these interviews to talk with experts to bring new information to our members that they need to know about. And this is a big one I'm really excited to talk about and to share with them about peanut allergies. I understand that they have recently changed the guidelines about when to introduce those, because many parents think you need to wait.
Sure.
And now I guess they're changing it to be earlier. So can you tell us a little bit about the new recommendations for preventing peanut allergies?
Yeah, so the new guidelines are a complete reversal from the previous recommendations, and the new guidelines encourage parents to introduce peanuts into the diet of infants at a very early age, as early as 6 months of age. And they kind of divide infants into 3 groups: a low-risk group where parents can introduce peanuts into the diet at home without hesitation, pretty much whenever they want, sooner being better than later. Then there's a moderate risk group where the child has mild to moderate eczema. They can still be introduced to peanuts at home, but if the parents are reluctant, it could be done in a supervised setting under a physician's office. And then there's a higher risk group of infants. This is a special group of infants with severe eczema or egg allergy already diagnosed. In these infants, they should be tested before having exposure to peanut with either blood work or skin testing with an allergist, with the ultimate goal still being trying to identify the best and safest way to introduce peanut. But overall, peanuts should be introduced earlier into the diet rather than later, without any proactive testing to be necessary.
Okay, so a couple questions for you. So you mentioned eczema and egg allergies as risk factors. Now, would it come into play if they have a sibling or a parent with a peanut allergy? Would that
That's a great question. So there are other risk factors for increased risk of food allergy. The guidelines define them as severe eczema and egg allergy. These specific guidelines did not mention an older sibling, parents, or other food allergies, not just egg allergy. If that is the case for families, I think that is a fantastic question that we don't have all the information on, and I would encourage them to discuss that with a pediatrician and or a food allergy expert, being an allergist.
Gotcha. Now, can you tell me at all, how this came about, why the reversal?
Yeah, so in 2000, there was recommendations made as food allergy was increasing that delaying the introduction would help. And over the subsequent years, we realized that not only wasn't helping, the problem was potentially getting worse. And that triggered a lot of really great research being done. And over the last 5 to 10 years, there's been fantastic research. There was a big landmark paper published 2 years ago, and which these guidelines are kind of based on. So these guidelines, we're very confident and hopeful, being based on such great science and such sound research, are really going to be effective in decreasing the rates of peanut allergy and potentially applicable to other foods as well going forward. Whereas unfortunately the previous recommendations were not so much based on science, which is unfortunate at this point.
Yeah, well, and that's something so I have a 5-year-old daughter, but I have a son who's 1.5, and when I had him, I had kind of read some of this stuff that was starting to go in that direction, and so because we are low risk for allergies in our family, and he didn't have any skin conditions or anything, I went ahead and introduced him to all the high allergen foods when he was around 6 months old, and I had so many friends that were like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And I said, well, I've been reading these studies, and they're saying that the earlier you introduce them, the less chance they have of being allergic later. And so far, so good. He doesn't have any food allergies. We'll see how it goes.
That's fantastic. No, I think most of the food allergy community would agree with your approach, and we hope to have official guidelines for other foods as well in the near future.
Yeah, definitely. So are there any other questions that parents should discuss with their child's doctor about this when they're going through this, or if they're basically in that low risk category, they can kind of just go forward?
So
the
low risk is really the safest. It's been studied that introducing it at home is very safe, effective. The risk of reaction is exceedingly low. But parents always have questions. There are other risk factors that may not be addressed by the guidelines, and we always encourage you to address it with your primary care physician, pediatrician, allergist. There's great online resources. Peanutallergyfacts.org has great information on these guidelines, practical tips on how to actually do this at home, frequently asked questions. So there's a lot of resources, but of course, never hesitate to reach out to your physician. That's what we're there for.
Great. Well, thank you for that, for the additional resources, too. I was just about to ask for that. So that's great that we have a website that has all the information for parents and about how to and how often to, because that's another thing I had read about, that, sometimes with allergies, the first introduction might not have as severe a reaction as subsequent. And so making sure that people are aware of that too, that any reaction they need to, talk to their doctor about.
Absolutely. When you introduce it, you try to keep up with it, but if you do have a reaction, obviously you stop, you treat the reaction, then you want to discuss it with your physician before continuing with that food.
Wonderful. Well, I really hope that this new guidance can help us move away from all these peanut allergies that has become such a huge thing, with our kids
Absolutely.
these days. So
We're very,
I'm really
very
hopeful
hopeful
for that. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing this information with me, and we'll be sure to get it out to our members and help spread the word.
Thank you for having me.